Justice was ready. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge was waiting. So why wouldn't the trial begin? They called themselves a family, not in the sentimental sense, but in the old sense, the Cosa Nostra sense, a criminal fraternity bound by secrecy, loyalty, and blood. For decades, they ran a shadow empire that spread like a virus through every district of the country. The signs were everywhere: drugs on the corners, brothels behind convenience storefronts, armed teens wearing colors not for fashion, but for turf. Their headquarters lay far beyond the nation's borders, but their operations here were vast, sophisticated, ruthless, a machine of extortion, vice, and fear. How do you fight something that hides behind everything? The mafia didn't need to control every institution, just enough. Layer by layer, their control became invisible but total. Everyone in the underworld knew who was really in charge. For years, prosecutors had tried and failed to bring them down. Too powerful, too protected. Until one day, a case emerged, a case from beyond, one that bypassed the usual channels. It came not from within the system, but from above it, a senior authority. A judge from outside the reach of their influence had been watching, gathering evidence, building the case, working in perfect coordination with a trusted investigator who knew the syndicate's methods inside and out. Together they struck. No leaks, no loopholes, no warning. The arrests were surgical. The leadership were apprehended, extradited, and delivered in chains to the courthouse at the nation's center. Their grip on the nation wasn't gone, but it was fractured. Their operatives still moved through the cities, collecting debts, ordering silence, trafficking lives. But without orders from above, the machine was weakening. One final blow would bring it all down. All that remained was the trial.
But what happens when the powerful are finally cornered? Yet the courtroom stays silent.
And that's where the problem began. Not with the evidence, that was overwhelming. Not with the law, that was clear. Not with the judge, he was ready. The trial couldn't begin because, day after day, the jury box remained incomplete.
Every morning, people arrived at the courthouse. They came from every corner of the country: farmers, bankers, school teachers, store clerks, all holding the same thing: a plain white envelope sealed with red wax. A summons. Inside, sunlight filtered through tall windows and rested on the 12-seat jury box. A few of the seats were filled, watchful figures sitting quietly, but most remained vacant. Those already seated said little. How many came thinking they were part of something sacred, only to be talked out of it before ever stepping through the door? In a room just beyond the chamber doors, a steward stood behind a polished desk. He greeted each new arrival with the same warm smile and an outstretched hand.
"Citation, please,"
he would say. The newcomer would hand over the envelope. The steward would scan the seal, nod thoughtfully, and then offer a gentle dismissal.
"Ah, you're here for gallery support. The jury's already been selected. A common misunderstanding. There's no need to disrupt the process."
Some would protest.
"But it says I'm assigned to seat 3.
"That's just procedural formatting,"
he would say calmly.
"Your role matters, even in the gallery. Support is part of the process too."
How many are told they're helping by doing nothing at all? Reassured, discouraged, or simply unsure, most turned away. They climbed the stairs into the gallery and took their seat, never realizing they'd been gently turned aside from the very place they had been summoned to occupy. Inside the courtroom, the judge sat high at the bench. He was old but not weary. His eyes were clear, his hands steady. Each day at the appointed hour, he would speak.
"This court cannot proceed without a full jury."
How long can justice wait for the ones it called by name? Outside, the mafia's operations limped along. The heads were in custody, but the bodies still moved. Every delay in court meant another day the syndicate could breathe, and the longer the jury remained incomplete, the longer the trial stayed frozen in time.
On the fourth morning, a man arrived alone.
No entourage, no hesitation,
Just a firm grip on the envelope in his hand, and the name Seat 4 written clearly across it.
He waited quietly until it was his turn. The steward greeted him.
"Citation, please."
The man handed it over. The steward examined the seal, nodded, and smiled faintly.
"Ah, yes. You'll be seated in the gallery."
The man looked down.
"But it says seat 4.
The steward chuckled softly.
"That's just standard formatting. The jury's already been selected. You weren't needed. But it's still good you showed up."
What would you do if someone told you your seat was already taken, even though your name was on it? The man didn't move. He looked at the envelope again, then at the door,
I was summoned to sit, not to watch.
and without waiting for permission, he walked past the desk and pushed through the doors into the courtroom. Inside, the room fell silent.
The man scanned the jury box. Seat 4 sat empty.
He took a step forward. Then a voice rang out, polished, confident, sharp.
Him?
It came from seat 3.
A man already sitting in the box, impeccably dressed.
Who does he think he is?
Isn't that always the question they ask when someone steps out of line?
He's unstable.
The juror continued.
He has delusions of grandeur, and he probably has mental and emotional problems.
The man paused, his face flushed. He looked down. He almost turned back. How many have stood at the edge of their calling and then sat back down because someone whispered they didn't belong? But he didn't turn. He looked at his summons, just once. Then he walked forward and sat in seat 4. The judge leaned forward.
Let the record show one more seat has been claimed.
But something shifted. In the gallery, people looked, not just at the man in seat 4, but at their own sealed envelopes. And the juror in seat 3 said nothing. When one rises, it doesn't take long before others remember they were called too.
For a moment, no one moved. The man now seated in seat 4 looked straight ahead.
But it wasn't silence anymore, it was tension. In the gallery, a murmur began to spread. Soft, curious, uncertain. Some leaned toward one another, whispering. Others began to look, really look, at the envelopes in their hands. How long had it been since they'd even opened them? One woman turned to the man beside her.
Mine says seat 5.
He blinked.
Mine says seat 6.
Across the gallery, the rustling of paper began. How many had come, faithfully, and then handed away the very thing that proved they were chosen? In the corner, a young man raised his hand.
Excuse me?
He said,
What if the seat in your envelope is still empty?
Before anyone could respond, the steward stepped forward. His tone was firmer than it was earlier.
Please remain seated. If the judge needs more jurors, he will call for them himself. Trust the process.
But what if the process was waiting on them? Then, from the jury box, a voice spoke up.
That's not how this works.
It came from an older juror, calm, steady, clear-eyed. He turned toward the gallery.
You were summoned. You were assigned a seat. If it's empty and your name is on it, no one can take that from you.
He glanced toward the steward.
Not even him.
Is there anything more dangerous than someone pretending to help while quietly keeping you from where you're meant to be? A woman rose from the gallery. She walked to the edge.
Mine says seat 8.
The steward stepped toward her.
Ma'am, I must strongly advise you to remain seated.
But she looked past him. Seat 8 was empty. She stepped forward. She crossed the chamber. She sat. The judge leaned forward.
Let the record show seat 8 has been claimed.
Then another person stood, then another, and a quiet procession began, not of rebels, not of radicals, but of those who had finally remembered. They were not invited to spectate. They were summoned to sit. The jury box, once quiet and half-filled, now breathed with the weight of 11 citizens sitting upright in their chairs. All but one seat was taken. Seat 12. Its name had not yet been claimed. A few people still sat in the gallery, hesitant, unsure. Some had misplaced their summons. Some had convinced themselves it had never mattered anyway. One or two were waiting for someone else to go first. But one woman, seated near the edge of the gallery, held her envelope tightly. She had watched the others go forward. She had seen the slander. And still she sat. She looked down at the name printed inside the envelope. Seat 12. She closed her eyes, then rose. How do you know it's your moment, unless you've stopped waiting for someone else to claim it first? She walked toward the aisle. The steward moved into her path.
You're not well.
He said bluntly.
Everyone knows it.
The woman said nothing.
You've always had trouble following instructions. You're impulsive, reckless, not fit for a role like this.
From the bench, the judge's voice cut through the quiet, calm but leaving no room for defiance.
Steward, step aside.
The steward hesitated, his jaw tight. Then, with forced composure, he stepped back. She walked past him without a glance. The steward's voice followed her, quieter now but still edged.
You'll embarrass yourself. and the court.
Still, the woman kept walking. From the jury box, the man in seat 3 stood.
This is absurd.
He barked.
You're really going to let her in? She's unstable, mentally diseased, possibly dangerous. You're all putting this court at risk.
What happens when the loudest voices are the most afraid of justice finally moving forward? The woman reached the steps. She looked up at the box, then back at the man in seat 3.
Why are you so afraid,
she said,
of someone sitting in the seat that isn't yours?
Silence. Then she climbed the steps and sat in seat 12. Suddenly, the side doors of the courtroom swung open. A young man strode in, an envelope held high.
Your Honor,
He said clearly.
I believe the man in seat 3 is sitting in my place.
The judge turned his gaze toward the jury, now full, then to seat 3.
Please, can the bailiffs check that the gentleman sat in seat 3 has a legitimate jury citation?
2 bailiffs approached. The man in seat 3 stood.
This is a mistake.
He spat.
I've been here longer than any of them. You don't understand who these people are. They're extremists. They're delusional.
But the judge raised his hand.
You were never summoned. You placed yourself in that seat. You remained not to uphold justice, but to delay it.
The bailiffs took him by the arms. His protest became noise, then silence. He was gone. The rightful occupant stepped forward. Without hesitation, he sat in seat 3. For the first time, the judge stood, deliberate, unshaken, authority without effort.
Let the record show that the final seat has been claimed.
A single bell rang, not a gavel, a tone, clear, steady, echoing through the courtroom. The trial is beginning. For the first time since the case had been prepared, the judge turned toward the defendant's bench. The accused were led into the chamber, cuffed, silent, no longer smug. And the judge spoke.
Let the proceedings begin.
Some were told they weren't chosen. Some were told they weren't ready. Some were told their presence in the gallery was enough, that watching was the same as standing, that supporting was the same as judging, that silence was the same as obedience. But the summons said otherwise. It bore their name, it bore their seat, it bore their calling. How many are still waiting for someone else to rise, when their own name is on the envelope? Not everyone received a summons, but for those who did, it wasn't decoration, it wasn't symbolic, it was real. The time for delay has passed. There is a trial waiting to begin, not in marble halls, but in this very age. And the powers on trial are not of flesh and blood. They are ancient, calculated, and afraid. Not afraid of paperwork, not afraid of speeches, afraid of you, afraid of the ones who rise from the gallery and take their seat, afraid of the ones who remember what they were called to do, afraid of the ones who stop listening to stewards who presume to speak in the judge's name. You were not summoned to observe. You were not summoned to support the others. You were summoned to participate and to judge. And when you rise, when you take your place, the trial begins. And everything that has ruled in the shadows begins to tremble. So, rise. Let the record show that you answered.